Hi there, and welcome back to my random talks where I talk about the random things that are important to me right now. Now, at TLDR, for those that haven't listened to the previous ones, I just graduated with a master's degree of psychology, and now I have no idea what I want to do with my life. Um, I never really made a long term planning of where I wanted to go with psychology, so now that I graduated, I have no idea what kind of job I would like or what I would like to build towards. So basically, my goal right now is sort of to, for the first time in my life, make a long-term planning of okay, where do I want to go with my life? Where do I want to see myself in 5 or 10 years, for example? So that the first job that I take maybe can even take me in that direction instead of just taking a random job and then having to figure out later, like, oh no, this isn't what I want to go someplace else. Now, as I said, this is the first time that I've had to do this my entire life. I've never made a long term planning, I've never thought about what I wanted to work towards. So, this is all very new to me. And I have to say, it's all very, well, simply put, it's very frightening to be in this position where you're like, you're done, but now everything's open. So you have absolutely no idea of, at least I have no idea of where to begin. Like, because it's so general, I have no idea. There aren't really any boundaries, so it's incredibly broad for me, and it's very difficult to see. Okay, where do I fit all the pieces? What are the possibilities? Because at the moment they seem pretty, well, pretty daunting, pretty endless. Of all the places that I can go, and that makes it very easy to pick a wrong thing, like to pick something that you're not really that interested in, or to spend a lot of time on something that you're not really interested in because there are so many choices. So the first thing I really have to do, um, or well, what I wanted to say is, it's very frightening, but it's also very, it's also very exciting. Strangely enough, because it's very frightening because it's so open, but that also makes it very exciting because it feels to me like this is the first time that I can really shape my life, so to speak. That I can really shape what I want to work towards. Um, and something that's very important to me that I really hold dearly to myself is that I want to enjoy this experience as much as possible, which may sound really weird, but it's something that can give you a lot of stress. Like, it's so open, and you haven't got a job. You have to find out what kind of job you want. So it's very stressful. It's a very stressful situation, and it's very easy to just constantly be stressed about that. And in fact, the job offerings for people who just graduate psychology, they're really not good. It's not easy at all to find a job in that field. Most of the jobs that are out there require a certain amount of experience, maybe a few years of experience, or they require certain registrations, or they require that you have a certain background within a certain field of psychology that I don't have. So there are a lot of, well, a lot of things that I don't have that will not get me certain jobs. So the jobs really aren't for the taking. There are very few, which makes it very hard to get that first job. And it may be something that may take months, maybe even years, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. And that's the reason why this is all very important, is because if I don't start working on it, it will probably take months or years before finding a job. I mean, it's very easy for that to take a very long time if you don't work on that all the time. So that's what this is all about, to start working on that. And the reason why talking about this works so well for me is that because it's so broad, I have no idea where to start. And I am a person who really needs structure in order to work towards something. Like, if there's a structure that you can follow, I can work on it really well. But this is so open for me that I'm having a lot of trouble finding out where to start. Because, yeah, I want to have a perfect structure before I start, but I can't get that structure here, so I just don't start. That's sort of my trap. That's what I have to be very cautious about. So what I have to do right now is sort of a mix between planning and taking action, which is something that is completely new to me. So that's something that I have to learn as well. Where, of course, I have to work on the plans, Like I have to work on a long-term plan of, okay, how am I gonna tackle this? How am I gonna work on this in the long term, in the coming months? But if I only work on that planning, I'll never get anything done. Like I'll constantly be planning. And I know myself. I can stay planning. I can stay in that planning period for a very long time. Just constantly planning. Okay, first task I'm gonna do is this, and then after that this, and then after that this, and then what do I have to do after that? And I'll never do the first actions. So I'll never work. So that's horrible. That's something that I really, really, really need to be very cautious about, not to fall into that. So planning, it is important, but the other part is, well, as important, and that's taking action. Now, I don't really know what actions there are to take yet, and that's sort of the tricky part. I don't have a set of rules like, okay, these are the actions that I have to take. So they'll sort of pop up randomly, like, okay, this is something that I can do. Oh, this is something that I can do, and then I'll just have to do them and see where it leads me. So yeah, that's very important. And right now, like, there are a few things that I'm thinking about. Like, one thing that's important, at least to me, is that there's sort of a split in what I want to do between becoming either a psychologist or becoming a coach. Because a coach is something that I've always been very interested in, and it's something that keeps coming back. Like every time I talk about my career or my future, it keeps coming back to that, to coaching. So that's something that I really, it interests me quite a lot, but I have very little information about that. I know very little about the job of coaching. Like, where can you apply that? What kind of companies do they have that seek coaches? What are they looking for in a coach? Like, do you have to have certain registrations? Do you have to have a certain background in education or whatever? So that's all the stuff that I really need to figure out with coaching. Like, what companies are there that offer coaching? What is the job description of a coach, basically? Like, what does a coach do? Which is a very important question to ask if that's something that you want to do. So yeah, what does a coach do? Like, the idea that I have is that they can give trainings, they can come to companies, stuff like that, and teach them tricks on how to work better. That's something that really interests me. So that's something that I hope is in the job description, so to say, but I don't know for sure. So yeah, finding out what they do, finding out what the requirements are for becoming a coach. Those are pretty much the important ones, and finding out companies that provide jobs in coaching. So those three things, they're very important, and I have to work on all three things. And I tried Googling this like a bit, but I didn't really get any further. I didn't really get the information that I wanted. So then you immediately sort of feel that despair, like, oh God, I'm stuck. If it's not on the second page of Google, it feels like you're never gonna find it. So yeah, for me, that's really important on how to organize, how to take the next steps within that. Like the long-term plan, it's pretty clear to me, so I can write that out for myself, but that could all be done within like an hour. But how to take these next steps, I just don't really know how to take these steps. So that's something I have to figure out. Now that's for coaching. As for psychology, it's also something that interests me very much. Now with psychology, there's sort of an added thing in that there are a lot of registrations that you either have to get, or there are a lot of different fields within psychology that you can work in. So it's very important for me, at least, to sort of map, okay, what are the different fields within psychology? Like, what kind of fields are there, and what kind of jobs are there in those fields, and what interests me, what doesn't interest me. Now, something else that I thought about is sort of like, what's the target audience that you want to work with? And that's something that, at least for myself, I've had very clear, is that I don't want to work with children or elderly. Like, those are some specific fields in psychology that you can work in, or with handicapped people, like mentally handicapped people. that's not really my field of interest, so I know I don't want to work with those, so I can scratch that. So sort of the target audience that I have are just, yeah, how do I say this? Just adults, just functioning adults. Um, but then of course comes the next step, like, okay, what is the job that you want to do, and what does that require? Like, what do they require from you if you wanted to get that job? So with psychology as well, there are a lot of things that I have to figure out. Um, okay, so I happen to I just actually got this by accident, but I have this empty book, and it says here on the front in gold letters, which is really cool. It says master plan. So that's sort of my the book that I'm gonna write everything into. Like these videos, they are the log for myself, and they're an easy way for me to capture all of my ideas, and then everything that is spit out there, so to speak, I can capture that within the book and then start working on it. So both the planning and action phases are going to come in the book. And everything I'm saying, it might change constantly because I just don't know how to work on this yet. But as long as I'm working on it, that's sort of the key right now. And also, it's kind of funny, like I just graduated and I started at work. I started reading. I just finished another book, so I started reading this other book that I'd read before. It's called Getting Things Done by David Allen. And it's actually a really cool book. It's how to get things done. How it says how to achieve stress-free productivity. So how to work on things within a good system, which, as you may imagine, is a pretty good book for me to have. I love this thing. Now there are a lot of important things in there, and I'm probably going to touch on a lot of them later on in other videos. But the thing I want to talk about right now is he calls it the natural planning model. And what that basically is that every plan that you have, it involves, like every project that you take, it involves 5 steps. And it's very important to do them all in the right order. So I'm going to read them out to you. So the first step is defining purpose and principles. Now, defining purpose and principles, it's pretty self-explanatory in one way. Defining purpose, why are you doing something? So yeah, with me, it's, of course, why do I want to find, or why do I want to have that 5-year goal? So that's something that I can really, that I can start working out. It's probably the easiest step. Yeah, it's probably an easy step of, okay, why is this important to me? Well, it's a 5-year plan. It's pretty much my entire career, so that it's important to me is pretty self-explanatory, but it's a good starting point to work out. And now the next step is outcome visioning. So outcome visioning. So yeah, it's basically what it says. Like, okay, say you have the perfect outcome. Say everything works out perfectly and you get exactly what you want. What does that look like? And this may be an incredibly important step for me because I think that's something that I haven't really given that much thought to yet. With like, okay, say everything works. What does that look like? Like, what is that perfect? Say you get the perfect job within 5 or 10 years. You get everything that you really want. What does that look like for you? And that's, especially for me, it's very important because if I know what my perfect job looks like, I pretty much know what I can work towards. Like, okay, I know what my perfect job looks like. What kind of job is that? What other jobs are close to that? And how can I get towards those jobs? So that really gives me a starting position of, okay, that's sort of the end goal. And then from that end goal, we can work back towards what do we have to do to get towards that goal. So incredibly important, probably the most important step for me at least. Okay, then we get to the next step, the third step, which is brainstorming. Now you know what the outcome is going to be like if everything goes perfectly. So what are the ideas? How are you going to get there? And as you may know, with brainstorming, everything goes. So just write down everything that comes to mind. No matter how stupid it is, just write everything down, and then later on you'll get to which ideas are the best or which you can work on. But for now, just write everything down. See what comes to mind when thinking of, okay, how am I going to get that awesome job that I want in the future. So yeah, that's the third step, that's brainstorming, and then we get to the fourth step, which is organizing. Now we have a lot of ideas from the brainstorming step. So what you have to do is see, okay, we have all these ideas now, how are we going to organize them into a system that we can work with? Now this is probably a step I'm pretty good at because I'm pretty good at organizing and I love doing it. I love structure. So yeah, this is probably going to be really good for me. So yeah, all the ideas that you have, how are we going to turn them into a structure that you can follow, and how are we going to make sure that that these steps are going to take you to that end goal that you had. And then the final step is identifying the next actions. So we have everything organized. We know what we have to do to get towards the end goal. Now what is the next step that we have to take? Okay, so that's 5 steps, pretty short. That's summary of the natural planning model. So with any big project that you have, this is how you should do it. Why are we doing it? What's it going to look like? Write down every idea, organize the ideas, and then start working on the next actions. Now that's probably the best thing for me to do, like next time. In the next video, just go through all these steps and see what comes to mind. You know, see everything that comes to mind and then start writing everything down. And yeah, see just what comes from that. Like, what does my perfect job look like? That's probably that's probably something that's good to know. Okay, so that's something that I'm gonna work on, but a very important side note, I know that identifying next actions is only last here, like it's the last step that you have to take. It's really not the first that you have to take. But then I want to come back to what I said in the beginning, which is planning and action for me, they need to take place simultaneously. Because otherwise I'll stay in the planning phase forever. I know that I will. So how do we do that? Well, the actions, like in the natural planning model, identifying the next actions, that really has to do with that final step of defining purpose and principles, that everything works towards that purpose. So that's all of that is the planning, but I'm going to take some actions as well, which they may lead to something, they may not, but at least I'm getting more information. So that's sort of how I want to work on those actions, is that just taking actions, see where they lead. So there will be no structure to that at all. They'll just be random, like, okay, this is something that I want to get more information. Okay, I'll send them an email, or I'll give them a call, or stuff like that. And there's a few things that I've sort of discussed, like that are probably really good to do, and I'll name just a few of them. Like first, there are at least 2 people that I know that are sort of working as a coach, or at least are very involved in positive psychology and really that field that I want to work in. So it's a really good idea to just send an email to them or contact them and say, just ask them a few questions, like, okay, what was the route that you took, and what were the requirements that they had for your job, and do you know of any like companies that work inside that coaching area or stuff like that that may be interested or that I can contact. So just use them as a first point of entry, and then maybe they know other people that I can connect to as well. So yeah, another thing for me that's really that can be very important to do is just look like if there's are any things like career events for psychology where they just map out everything that you can do in psychology, and you can talk to people who work in the different fields of psychology, stuff like that. If there are things like those that I can start going to, and like magazines of psychology where they write down everything that you can do, everything that I can figure out to get as much information on how to take the next step as possible, and sort of start mixing myself into that world, I guess. So yeah, those are all kinds of actions that I can take. So a lot of contacting with people, just asking for more information about all the different things that I'm interested in, and that can take place simultaneously to the natural planning model. So yeah, that's that's where we are right now. So far, well, this is the start. This is where I really don't know what I want to do and everything, and This is just sort of the setup of how I'm going to work on everything. And I hope that in like a year I can look back on this like, okay, this was the starting point, and after at the end of that year, I know exactly what I want to do, where I want to work towards, and hopefully I have a nice job that I like doing that will get me further. So yeah, that's where we're gonna leave this video, and next time I'll try to do the natural planning model more in depth. I might do it without the microphone and then talk about the results. But yeah, that's something that I'll work on, and as with the other next actions, I'll just write everything down for myself and then see where that goes. So yeah, we'll see you in the next video. As always, thank you so much for listening to my rambling, and hopefully I will see you or talk to you guys in the next video.